All right. I understand my head's cut off. That's how it's going to be. So, yeah, because we got to show Frank. This is Frank the guitar, man. And where I'm at, if I were to put it higher, then Frank might be out of the bottom of the frame. So, today is December 30th, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. This is In the Image Clothing Company Music. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, where we are more than just a clothing company. We discuss the human body, and that's actually the focus of why we are what we are. We allow the body to work mostly through clothing because it's the only thing that's placed on us at all times, but through everything that we do in our lives. And so we have three sides to our company, right? We've got In the Image Clothing Company, the main side, where we discuss the anatomy of the human body and clothing and what those things are doing, like with each other and to each other. Really, mostly what clothing is doing to the body. And then we have In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then we have this side here, which is In the Image Clothing Company music. Now, this is Frank the guitar, little Yamaha CGS102A. And I just, as you can see, these tail ends of the strings, I just put new strings on Frank. And I made a video titled How to String a Guitar. Something like that. Under In the Image Clothing Company music, you can go find. And before I listen to this, before I put them up to full tension, I started this video here so that I can do a how to tune a guitar from like completely out of tune. So yeah, it'll be a good video for anybody to have from a completely like basically no tension on the strings point. So this is what we're going to do, right? We have an E, an A, a D, a G, a B, and an E. Now, what you're hearing are not actually the notes that I was saying because it's not in tune yet. But what we want to do when we tune a guitar is ideally keep even tension across the neck, because the neck's just a piece of wood. And if you tune like these bass three strings, right, these three wound ones over here first, and get them all really tight and in tune, and you haven't started on this side of the fretboard, these high three unwound strings, then you can just twist that neck of the guitar by the tension of the strings, because there's a lot of tension on these strings once they're all together pulled tightly. So we're going to start with the E, the low E, and what I do is when I'm actually twisting it tighter at the tuning peg, I don't keep plucking it. Like sometimes you'll see people hit the string like this as they're twisting the peg. I would say don't do that, because see how I twist it, check it, twist it, check it. If you're hitting it like this as you're twisting it, you're actually rolling the string with your finger. Either you're doing it this way, rolling the string this way, or you're doing it this way and rolling the string this way as you're twisting it. So now you're putting a twist into the string as you're wrapping it around the tuning barrel. So I say not to do that, okay? Meaning I don't personally. So I'll twist it. Like now I'm on this high E over here. I'm gonna go to the opposite side to keep even tension. I'll check it and then twist it, and then check it and then twist it, just like that, because I don't want to put a twist into my strings. Now what I'm gonna do is just kind of get some tension. So now I'm gonna come back to this string here, which is this A string, just kind of go back and forth across the neck just to keep some tension evenly across, and then we'll continue to tighten them. So now I'm going to go over to this B, okay, just getting some tension. I'm going to go back to the D, this one here, which is this one here. When I say back to the D, this is the first time that we've gone to this one. Okay, Okay, now I'm going to go over here to the G, which is this one here, just to get some tension. That's actually a G right there. But yeah, then just keep kind of working my way. So now I'm back to this bass string, this E. That's actually really close to an E. Go back up to this high E here. You don't have to do it in the exact order that I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I'm going like evenly across the neck as I add tension. Now, keep in mind, if you have had your strings, like if your strings were just still on and they had just come out of tune, you won't have to be doing as much as I'm doing here. But these strings I just barely put on, and so they have quite a bit of tension that needs to be put into them. When strings first get put on, they have to stretch. And then once they've stretched into place, they will... Is that actually tightening? That's kind of what I'm saying. Once they stretch into place, they'll actually stay there well after they've been allowed to do that. But sometimes it'll take a couple days when you first string a guitar for them to actually get to their full stretch. So anyway, I'm just going back and forth, keeping pretty well even tension across the neck, and I'm just getting the strings close. So now that E's at an E flat, it's pretty close. This E's at an E. This D is at a G. I mean, this is an A that was at a G there. Now it's at an A. This B is at a G sharp. Now it's at a B flat. Go to this D string, C sharp. Now that is in the D range. Now this G is at a low G range. Gonna go back to this high E. What I'm doing right now, again, like I said, is just kind of keeping even tension across. This part isn't actually getting it like into tune right here so much. So it's just, I'm getting the strings close while just keeping pretty well even tension across the neck. Okay, so now they're all pretty well close. Now, pretty much from this point forward is closer to where you'd be if your guitar had just come out of tune. But I wanted to be sure to include within this, just so it's all within one video, doing it as if you're doing it from just basically no slack within your strings. So now we're at an E. Okay, that bass low E, we want to... Let me just look at this real quick. I've showed this before, and I'll show it when you wrap your excess string around the... Sorry, just one second, because I want to be able to show this well, so I'm going to get it to where it needs to be to show that. When you wrap your excess string around those tuning barrels, I say that we shouldn't. It's not just about what I like or not. I'll explain why we do this. But I say we shouldn't have the string as it's coming up touching against the winding of itself. And so what I was doing there is just kind of pushing that excess winding of the string away from, like, this would have been pushed this way. These 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 would have been pushed this way. And this one pushed this way. Because that way, when the string's coming up, it's not vibrating against itself. It's going to be cleanly sitting against that tuning barrel without touching itself. So the main things to keep in mind are to not twist the string while you're picking it, right? To like check if it's in tune. So what I'm doing here is what I was just saying, trying to keep that little gap from where the excess is wound and then where the string is going to actually come up. So yeah, E flat, there's an E, okay? So now we've got that one within the E range. That's a G sharp. So we gotta go just a little bit higher for that guy. I'm just pushing these, the windings of that string over. Like I was saying, so that's a B flat. Okay, that's within the B range. Ideally, you don't want to go higher than the note, than the actual note of the string is. Okay, that's a G right there. So now we've got E, B, G coming from this side, right? High to low, E, B, G, and they're within their range, but I'm just trying to keep even tension across. This one here is an E, that's within the range. That's an A. I'm just looking to make sure that they're not touching themselves on there. So there's an A, and there's a C sharp. The next would be a D. That's within D range. So now that you've got them all within range, E, A, D, G, B, and E, what you're going to do at that point is just kind of keep playing with it a little bit. Because, well, if you've come from, like I said, basically no slack, or basically no tension within the strings, then the strings really do need to be able to get to their full tension. And what that requires is for them to kind of stretch, and then they'll, you know, lose some of the tune, and then they'll stretch a little bit more, lose some of the tune, stretch a little bit more, until they get to their full, like, end point of where they're going to just naturally be at that note. So we'll get it pretty well in tune, but what I would say is it's okay at first to go a little bit higher. So if there's like an E, and then you've got like, it's kind of an E flat, or it's an E sharp, right? A little bit lower or a little bit higher. I'd go a little bit higher, which is a little bit sharp at first. So there's an E, and it's sharper than an actual E. There's an A, it's sharper than an actual A. There's a D, sharper than a D. There's a G, and we'll put it a little bit sharper than a normal G. That B, put a little bit sharp as well. That E, a little bit sharp. And the reason I do that is, like I'm saying, it'll fall a little bit, and then we'll get it back up, and it'll fall a little bit and get it back up, but each time it'll get closer to its full tension. Okay. So at this point, we're pretty well in tune, meaning they're all like within the range of what the actual note is. So that's really what you're going to do when it comes to tuning, is just keep tweaking it a little bit until you get them to stay where they're going to be. So remember, we've got an E, A, D, G, B, and an E that's higher than this first E. These are the same notes, these outer two, but that's a low E, that's a high E. So really the biggest points are to make sure that you keep, and I'm going to make this like a big point, because I'm going to actually, once I cut this video, adjust this. It's not necessary to show within the video me doing it, but I'll show what I'm going to do, because I just barely strung this guitar, and I actually need a little bit less slack wrapped around on this E. See how there's quite a bit of string here wrapped where this E is? What's happening is the E that's coming, like the actual string that I'm going to be playing, is coming up and it's touching against the wrap of that string. It's probably good that that actually happened within this video, because it'll show how intentional I am about it, and it'll give an actual visual example where you can see none of the other strings right now, except for the bass E, but I can just kind of adjust that a little bit with my fingers. There's not too much slack there. But see how the bass E, which is this one, and the high E are actually touching the excess wrapping, but everything else, like right here, there's a little gap, here there's a little gap, here there's a gap, and here there's a gap, where it's actually coming up and meeting the rest of the winding of the excess. That's what we want. We want a little bit of a gap there so that it's not hitting against it. And I can actually feel, it is still out of tune a little bit, but I can feel on that high E that it's touching. I can feel it. It feels like the string's like dead. It doesn't vibrate as freely. And not only can you feel it within your hand, but you can hear it. The string sounds like dead. So, yeah, that's why I'm so particular about that. It'll make it hard to play. It will potentially just cramp up your left hand, because the fingers that are on the other strings are like feeling all lively because the strings are vibrating. And then the one that's on that high E, just because in this case it's the one that's touching, it'll feel dead. So your hands are actually feeling different things. So that's what I'm going to show within this. Actually, I mean, I'll get the rest of the strings in tune, but then I'm going to actually cut this before I do any more to that high E, just because it doesn't need to be included within the video. It'll just take some time, but I explained what I'm going to be doing. So really the biggest two takeaways that I'd say within tuning a guitar are, like I'm doing right now, only pluck the string to check if it's in tune if you're not twisting the peg at the same time. And then in addition to that, make sure that there's that little bit of a gap between the actual string that's coming down and the rest of the wrapping. And then from that point, there you go. As long as you know what the order is, right? E, A, D, G, B, and then high E. That one I'm going to do a little bit with after this video. But that's what I would say within tuning. It's really pretty self-explanatory as long as you can find where the notes are, and you know which string is which note. But there's those couple little things that I would definitely be sure to try to be aware of. So yeah, there we go. Now, one thing I will say is try to keep this down here, these little wraps, nice and pinched together. And you can check out my video on how to string a guitar to see that, but the strings weren't fully tuned at the end of that video because I just had finished it before this one. So yeah, I mentioned it though. Pinch those strings together so there's a nice, crisp, clean area where the strings will come down to. And just like up here, a nice, crisp, clean area where it's not against something. Just everything should be pulling as even as we can get it. So that's how to tune a guitar. That'll give you everything you need to know, because that's all there is to it. Biggest thing is just, yeah, getting familiar with what note is what string, right? Cool. So I'm going to loosen this E, take some of the slack out of the end so that then there's less there to have it like stack against. And after that, it's good. These other strings, they're in tune. But like I was saying, they might start to fall a little bit flat, and that's okay. That's normal. I think that's a big thing to see, is some people might not know that that's normal. If you first put a set of strings on and you tune it up, they will fall out of tune. that's supposed to happen, just meaning that does happen. So it could take even 2 days, potentially even 3 days, maybe, even more maybe, but I'm just, it'll just take a day or two for them to get to their full tension, and then they will stay in tune after that. So don't feel like you've done something wrong if they're not staying in tune because, yeah, okay, because of what I just said. So, like I said, it's the 30th of December, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. This is In the Image Clothing Company Music. Check us out if you want to. Check out the other sides of the company as well if you want to. And yeah, I've done a lot of videos with Frank the guitar, foundational things, setups, tunings, this video, and yeah, a lot of things. I have a lot of understanding and knowledge about guitars. I have a lot of experience with them. So, yeah, there's a lot that I can teach you, actually, if you'd like to learn, meaning there's already videos out that you can go learn from. So, there you go. That's how to tune your guitar. I guess that's all I'm going to say. Anybody can teach you how to tune a guitar, and that's fine. You don't have to learn that from a specific person. But what you can learn from me that most people won't teach you is those few little things to be specific about. You want those strings just in line. You don't want them rolled, and at the ends, like I'm showing, you want it just a very clean end. And that's something that you can only really do while you're tuning it. So yeah, just be intentional about that. It'll really help your playing. It'll be really a lot harder to play if you have all the strings pressing against themselves up there. It'll be a lot harder to play. So, and if they're rotating, because when you've tuned it, they twisted, right? You want to be able to pluck them and have them just evenly vibrate without like trying to roll and unroll as they're vibrating. So, okay, there we go. That's how to tune your guitar. Thank you.